Thank you, first of all, Mayor Harrell, for being with us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, so Mayor Harrell, you have said that you want to run for another term. What grade would you give yourself on the first term?
You know, I appreciate that question. I don't grade myself. I never do that. And the reason being is I'm an eternal optimist, but I realize there's a lot of work to do. I let the voters grade me, but I don't do the grade thing. I was a straight A student, but I won't grade myself. I'll just keep doing what I think is necessary to get our city on the right track.
Well, how would you assess your performance then during your first term
overall?
Well,
sure, a fair question. We know we work 7 days a week. When you look at what I inherited as an example, when I took office, we had lost 300 officers. That's a fifth of our police department. And worse, we had a narrative where our police officers were demoralized. There was talk about defunding them. And we took that department now to where we're getting 4,000 applications a year, almost 10 a day. Last year, we hired 84 officers. That's 6 times the number of officers a time a year ago. Already, we've hired 60 this year. We're on a great trajectory. So when you talk about grading myself, we look at the work that we're doing. And I could go through every components of the ecosystem of a great city and talk about what we've done both in policy and implementation. So regardless as to the grade, we work overtime to get our city on the right track. And I'm very proud to have a great administration and some great employees with me every step of the way.
What are you most proud of all of your accomplishments so far?
Well, I would say that rebuilding the police department, going to each precinct, talking to each officer, and you look at our crime rates, homicides down 27.5%, violent crime down 11%, crimes across all categories down 18%. This is real work that we're doing under a great chief that I hired, Chief Sean Barnes. You look at the creation of the care department, which is a non-gun and badge response to crisis situations. We created that from scratch. And now you see last year they've done over 2,000 incidents where they are saving lives. So you could talk about the public safety component, but housing is a critical piece of what makes a great city. Under my administration, we've invested over $1 billion, and we passed a $970 million housing levy to make sure that we are rapidly and aggressively addressing affordable housing. And we put forth a comp plan that looks at how we prepare for growth. And I could talk about transportation and climate change, but this is groundbreaking legislation we've done in climate change. The climate plan hadn't been updated since 2013. And I recently issued an executive order, a very comprehensive executive order on how we will address the climate crisis. And transportation, last year was the first time in I don't know how many years, 10 years, that we had 0 fatalities from bikes because we passed a $1.55 billion transportation levy. And I said we will lead with safety first. So again, you look at the different components of what could get a city right on the right track. And I think we're operating on all cylinders.
Let's talk about affordable housing. I know that you're familiar with a recent poll that was done. 29% of Seattleites feel that cost of living is their top concern. But rents are high, and it's almost impossible for a lot of people to even afford to live in the city. So what will you do to address that?
Yeah. So the first thing, we have to realize Seattle's not alone. We are a wealthy city. The fact is because of the tech boom and our advancements in manufacturing and maritime and high tech and biotech, the median income, the houses have gone up. And that's just the reality of the matter. So what we've done is we've looked at, first of all, our comprehensive plan, and we've addressed the need for over 300,000 units that I proposed around neighborhood centers. And so we looked at all 84 square miles of our city to say, how can we embrace growth? Then you need the investments. And so I was very aggressive when we passed a $970 million housing levy to make sure we can fund all of this housing that we want to do. Then I accelerated and expedited the permit review process to make it easier to build. So, you know, there's only so much any mayor can do, but we will pull every tool out of the toolkit. In my budget, we proposed $342 million. That's the largest in our city's history for affordable housing, because I want that teacher here, I want that social worker here, I want that barista here. So we're doing everything possible to make sure we get the affordability that we want.
You brought up the One Seattle plan and this promise to add 330,000 housing units. So how will you prioritize affordability specifically for low-income residents who represent about 40% of the population?
Yeah. So first thing you do is you have to put the right leaders in place in an administration. And I hired a person, that Michael Winkler Chen, who had a background in this. And I had to make a lot of leadership changes in my administration. So you get a person that has the right skill set. And in that particular department, literally we have to go and look at the city almost on a granular basis to make sure every component of it. I created basically a sub-cabinet of housing. Everyone that touches housing, the permit process, the funders, federal, state, local funds, all in, even my homelessness strategies, all in a sort of a cabinet, if you will. And then you start working with the developers to build, and you listen to the communities. Not all communities want a certain level of density in their neighborhood, so you work with these communities. So again, it's an all hands-on approach, and we have to have funding. And so again, we were very proud of the levy we were able to pass. That was not an easy feat, and I want to thank the voters for believing in our ability to try to build this kind of housing.
You brought up homelessness. The point-in-time count in 2024, there were still about 10,000 people who were unsheltered in King County. And of course, we still see homeless encampments across the city. Are you feeling good about how you've addressed it so far, and what will you do moving forward to still address the homeless crisis that we still see?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, let's just, as my kids say, let's keep it real.
Yeah.
When I inherited this job, there were tents everywhere. RVs everywhere. People were living in cold conditions, incredible heat conditions, and I said, not under my administration. So we rapidly made sure that our housing strategies under a housing first approach would house these folks. And you saw a removal of over 80% of the encampments. People cannot put a tent where wheelchair dependent people are trying to get through a sidewalk. So you saw. And I had to create the team for this, by the way. I didn't have a built-in systems. So I built the unified care team, I built the downtown activation team, so I had to look from a systems approach, how do we get it done? So that's sort of the first component of it. The second piece of it is in the Regional Housing Authority, another organization that I inherited by design. I took a look at that and said, there were over 44 people determining sort of the future and the implementation of that group. 44. There was the continuum of care, the implementation board, and the governing committee. Yet the city of Seattle is funding over 120 million of it. The lion's share of the funding comes from the city of Seattle. So I looked at that model and I said, this is not an effective model. And literally on my desk, I started drafting what a good model should look like. And this is recent work, by the way. So I had to redesign the system to have one board. If elected officials are being blamed for the crisis, that they should have a more meaningful impact on how it's done. And of course, we center the voice of those with lived experience, but I have to have policy leaders making decisions. So we revamped the board. We've only had 1 or 2 meetings under this new structure. I have to also say this, that the city of Seattle puts in money and the county puts in money. We put in more money than the county. But I do not get any funds from my neighbors, whether it's Tukwila or Kent or Federal Way or Renton or Bellevue or Mercer Island. I could go around the cities and the county. We have to have a regional approach. So what we're doing now through policy and advocacy is I'm making sure we are truly going to embrace a regional approach. I ask this question, tiny homes are a transitional step toward getting someone toward permanent housing and in some cases permanent supportive housing. And 85% of the tiny homes in the county are in Seattle. This is a city with 84 square miles, Joyce. Hard enough for a barista or a teacher to live here. I can't house all of these folks. And so our answer has been a true regional approach. And if we can't do a regional approach, I would consider all alternatives. And that's the work I'm doing right now, which would take me into my next term. Because I'm fully committed to housing as many people as possible and rectifying this homelessness issue. But I can't just do it in Seattle when people are coming from all over to live on our streets.
Before I turn to public safety, I do want to ask you about your concerns around federal dollars with the Trump administration targeting cities like Seattle, sanctuary or welcoming cities, as you call them, and federal dollars that could impact things like abortion, climate, and more. What are your concerns around that, having to deal with the administration on a federal level?
Well, first of all, what I have to do is evaluate from a fiscal standpoint every dollar that's impacted. So we know that there are close to $300 to $400 million that come in from the federal government that goes toward public safety, goes to sexual violence, it goes to housing and transportation issues. There's another $900 million or so that goes to the county that we are beneficiaries of. So number one, we're monitoring. We haven't had an actual cut yet. And so as I look at our budget, which I'm sure you may have some questions about, we are making sure we're in a position to either backfill when necessary or come up with other solutions. But these are real threats. And so, again, for a person whose very freedom are dependent upon the actions of the federal government, we've also put in place sort of a system by which we know how to act and how to react to make sure that we protect our people, because we are a welcoming city and we're proudly a welcoming city. So the cuts are real. I want to give Nick Brown, our Attorney General, and our Governor, Ferguson, kudos, because we are working collaboratively together to make sure we're protecting everyone here. So we're ready. We're ready from a legal standpoint, from an energy standpoint, to make sure we're protecting people here in Seattle.
So let's talk about the budget. The city is facing a $240 million budget deficit. What is the plan? How do you tackle that?
Well, there's a few things. Number one, I have to tell you that amidst any criticism that they may have against the city, all 3 years of my administration, I've had a deficit. That I have not had the comfort of having a mayor that's flush with funds. But we do have a plan. And if I look at, for example, if I ask every department to cut their budget by 16% and the public safety to cut their budget by 4%, I could address it. But there you will have very real impacts that you will see every single day. So that is not the approach. But I do know mathematically, again, if I ask them to cut by 8% and public safety by 2%, that we are asking them to look at that. So number one, all options are on the table. We also have to look at new revenue sources. That's just the reality of it. We need a lot to keep our ecosystem in place. You see that our parks are open, our bathrooms are open, and so people have an expectation that potholes are filled, et cetera. So we're looking at, first we'll have to see what the state does, what tools the state gives us, but we have all options on the table. So we will approach it from both a revenue standpoint and an expense standpoint. And a lot of fiscal conservatives say, well, tighten your belts, but we can't. The money is so significant that you just can't cut yourself out of this problem that we're having. So we'll use all tools available, whether it's new revenue and expense reductions. I have a hiring freeze right now. I have a hold on contracts, travel, and so we're doing all those things. But again, I can't just cut $240 million out of the budget without everyone's quality of life being affected. And that is the goal, to make sure our core services are optimal during this fiscal challenge.
One of the budgets you did increase was for the Seattle Police Department by, I believe, $60 million, but you had to cut in some other places. I believe that there were some cuts made in food programs, in potentially housing programs, the LEAD program, to boost the funding for the Seattle Police Department. Just explain the math and the reasoning around that and why that was the correct move in your mind.
Yeah, well, when you are the steward of public funds, you have an obligation to make sure every dollar is spent wisely and you're driving the outcomes that you want to see. So in some of the programs, and again, I inherited many of these contracts, I met with a lot of the service providers and I will ask you, what outcome are you driving? And if they say, I am a healing circle, that I am healing people in a circle that have experienced trauma. And that's important work. But I will ask the question, how many people are you healing? What does healing look like? How many individuals are being served by your organization? So I'm saying that to give you an example of, this is the kind of granular lens by which we will make fiscal decisions. I have to drive certain outcomes, and I'm very outcome-based. So I put a hold on contracts as an example to make sure we're doing the evaluative work, and we'll just continue to do that. So the rationale is making sure that we're getting the bang for the buck in every dollar that goes out the door.
Did the increase in millions of dollars for the Seattle Police Department pay off? I know we're getting more officers, but net, in terms of loss to gain, we haven't gotten that many more officers than we had. We've not lost as many. So have the dollars paid off?
Well, again, these are tough questions.
I know.
I'm going to give you candid answers.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you candid answers. The net increase of officers is the first time this has gotten accomplished since 2019. This is not easy work. You're looking at the cities across the country that haven't been able to reverse the trend that we did here in Seattle. So even though there was a net increase of only one officer, the trajectory is right. We've hired 60 officers this year, and my chief, my superstar chief, has said we're on a trajectory to hire 200, hopefully by the end of this year, okay? So
better than losing 200, more.
Yes, well, you have to also understand these are tough jobs, and a lot of the officers realized that it was time for them to retire. They wanted to retire, they looked forward to it, and they earned it. Okay, so again, I don't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines and being the critic. I'm working 7 days a week, and I recruit officers every chance that I get. Every speech that I give when I'm talking about public safety, I tell folks, my team around me recruits officers, literally. So to suggest that we're not doing everything human, we looked at the time by which it takes for a person to go through the whole training, right? We looked at the physical agility tests. We looked at the frequency of tests. We went from soup to nuts on how one becomes a police officer, to figure out where the gaps are. So again, good policy work, good energy. So this is significant work. I shared with you the statistics. When I say homicides are down 27.5%, when I say violent crime across all categories are down 18%, it just didn't happen like this. When I talk about the creation of the care department, that frees up time for my officers to go to priority one calls. And this is groundbreaking work under a chief, Amy Barton, who's a superstar, who has both sort of an applied behavioral science kind of background, very academic in her approach, and she and her officers, her care officers, just doing amazing work. And we started from scratch.
Yeah. I want to talk more about the police department because you keep talking about the new chief who's new in the job. You are in your third police chief in 4 years. As you know, Adrien Diaz's tenure was marred by sexual harassment scandals and lawsuits. He's now suing the city for $10 million, alleging discrimination and harassment and wrongful termination. And I think people want to know if you think that you stood by him too long before letting him go.
Well, that's a fair question, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I don't think about it like that. This is how I try to treat every human being fairly. And I try to use data to make a decision. And Adrien Diaz was a person I knew even when I was on the city council. And I will err on the side of treating someone fairly every single time. And again, there's litigation going around. And so if someone criticizes me for that, then I'll take that criticism. I will learn from it. I'm not perfect. And again, I have a lot of employees, about 14,000 of them. And I care about them all. So I'm not going to be quick to judge anyone in any circumstances. And if that's a fault, then one of my many faults, I suppose.
I would be remiss to not ask you about the letter that came to your office that was just made public to us today. Diaz's former chief of staff, Jamie Tomkins, is threatening a lawsuit. She's asking the city to settle for $3 million. She alleges that she was taunted and sexually harassed working in a sexually volatile workplace the entire time she was there, basically. And I know she sent you a letter back in November. I just want to quote part of that letter. She says in this letter that in June of 2023, you met with Diaz about the alleged affair, told him that you were not worried about the rumor and that it was completely all right. This is what she writes in her letter to you. And then when Diaz told you that he had not slept with her, she alleges that you responded saying that you would, quote, do Tomkins and it's fine. This is the letter she sent to you asking for the city to settle for $3 million. Did that conversation happen, and what is your reaction to that?
No, it did not happen. And it's pretty disgusting, a crass statement like that. Everyone that knows me, and again, I'm born and raised in this city, knows I don't talk like that. So that didn't happen, number one. Number two, I think what Ms. Tomkins is describing, number one, is we were very transparent. We commissioned an audit to make sure we're looking at how women are treated in the department. So I will underscore the fact that we have a gender issue in our police department and many departments throughout the country. They're struggling with the issue of retaining and recruiting women. So I take her allegations very seriously. I can't speak to what she experienced. That's an ongoing litigation. But we all know that Chief Diaz was terminated, and the investigative report suggests he was terminated for dishonesty, but those statements were never made, and they're pretty disgusting, and I'm disappointed that I had to hear that.
As you know, the city's facing all kinds of legal costs around things tied to police misconduct, settlements with former employees. At least 5 other SPD employee lawsuits are pending. So how do you respond to critics who suggest that your delay in dealing with sort of all of the drama within the police department has basically led to this culture that we see in the police department currently?
So again, I sort of inherited the hand that I had. I mean, many of these issues that are being alleged way predated me, and they were when I was on the council and even for other mayors. We recognize that when you talk about culture change, it starts at the top. So the first thing I have to do is model the behavior I want to see. And then I have to hire the right person who I believe I hired in Chief Barnes. And I applaud Chief Rohr, who was an interim chief, for coming in when I needed a leader to come in to help sort of reset the culture, if you will. So again, the audit that was done on the Seattle Police Department, and much like other departments, even my city light department, I commissioned these audits. I mean, I have a background in both human resources and employment law. So I use that to my advantage to say, look, we're not afraid to look at our soft underbelly in the police department or any other department. We will learn from it. When my first speech I gave when I became mayor, I said, we are going to model being a learning organization. And the first step in being a learning organization is looking at yourself. The race and social justice lens is not just about race, it's about every person that's underrepresented, disrespected in the workplace. And so that's the work we're doing. I believe we have some of the right leaders in place now, and we're going to move forward. And for what happened in the past and the multiple lawsuits, well, that's part of the system, that if that's helps us purge some of the misconduct that we have to purge, then we will do that to the step toward getting better. And so,
do you think all of that's a hindrance to attracting police officers?
It's not in this situation because the data speaks for itself. I'm getting 10 applications a day. We're getting over 4,000 applications a year. This is the first time, by the way. This is unprecedented. And why is that, number one? Number one is I've changed the narrative with my administration. I say it's cool to be a police department here, a member of our Seattle Police Department. And if you look at our use of force, we're under consent decree. We'll be out from under that and pretty soon, hopefully this year. You look at our use of force, the numbers are very impressive. Look at the leadership we have in place. So we're on the right trajectory. I was very conscientious on how we structured our last labor deal with our police officers, our signing bonus, et cetera. What I said under my administration, we will have a world-class Seattle Police Department. And if we have to uncover some of the vulnerabilities or some of the not so pleasant parts of that culture to get there, then we're going to do that. That's being open and transparent. At the end of the day, it will pay in dividends.
In the deal that you made with the Seattle Police Department, there are some that suggested that the trade-off was oversight or accountability in making that deal, that there's less oversight. And for the public, some people think that that wasn't a good trade.
I would say that's absolutely not true. I just disagree. They could have that opinion, and I'll say why. Number one is, when I was on the council, I created one of the most robust racial profiling laws called the bias-free policing law in the country, number one. Number two, we have a robust OPA director system. We have an ombudsman. We have the Community Police Commission. So we have a very robust accountability system in place, such that when there's an allegation of misconduct, it's investigated, we act on it timely, and we move on. So I don't think it's been weakened at all in terms of accountability. People know that this mayor's passionate about accountability, and so I think we have the right systems in place.
Why the criticism, do you think?
Well, they see in our country. Let's remember what happened on March 25th, 2020. This country witnessed a brutal murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin when George Floyd called for his mother. That was May 25th. They see that kind of egregious conduct throughout the country, and they say, how can this happen now in our lives? And so they want a robust accountability system. So I suppose there's always going to be criticism, but if you look at how we are responding to complaints, any allegations, you look at how how we deal with protests as an example, and the policies that are coming from our administration, that I think we've we're proven that we support accountability thoroughly in our policies. And if we don't, we'll continue to improve it. I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be improved. We will try to improve it. So we listen, we try to improve it, but we have a robust accountability system in place.
We're going to switch gears. Let's talk about FIFA and downtown revitalization. How important is FIFA going to be for this city, and what is your plan to really make the most of it in terms of dollars and cents?
Yeah. So FIFA has to be looked at, again, on what we're building here in Seattle. So what we try to do in my administration is we're not just building for tomorrow, we're building for a continued sustainable success. So the FIFA games, which is going to be huge, and we're talking about 11 Super Bowls here in the city. But we're also talking about the revitalization of the Seattle Center, where the fan zone would be. We have a robust strategic plan for the Seattle Center, and incorporating, for example, the Pacific Science Center as a part of that. You're looking at trails. You're looking at a great process by which we're going to have a sort of a new Seattle Center here in the very near future. You're looking at the rebuilding of Westlake Mall into I don't want to scare people and say it's going to be like Times Square, but it's going to be like the heart center, the heartbeat, if you will, of their downtown. You look at how Pike Place Market, Memorial Stadium. So how I changed the zoning codes downtown and make it to convert buildings into residential. So we're looking at the long-term growth of the city. FIFA will put us on the world stage. And what did we announce yesterday? We now have a women's professional hockey team. So we're the only major city to have a soccer team, a basketball team, and now a hockey team. This is all a trajectory to put Seattle on the map the way it deserves to be on the map. So FIFA is going to give us the excuse to dress up, get our streets ready, get our downtown ready, let the world see how cool we are here in Seattle.
How will you make sure surrounding neighborhoods, small business people are going to reap the benefits just like some of the bigger businesses in the hotel industry?
Yeah, that's...
Like, the International District, for example, the Central District.
Well, when we hosted the Major League All-Star game, the baseball game here, it resulted in a $2 million investment to this day in Rainier Playfield on the south end of Seattle. And the way I'm dealing with our local organizing committee for FIFA, and I'm one of the 2 co-chairs of the 11 cities in the country on the FIFA games, that I'm making sure from a granular standpoint, every neighborhood, if you will, can get a piece of the action. So by that I mean making sure that we have, from a transportation standpoint, good wayfinding so people can see different parts of the city, making sure we have capital investments in certain areas to make sure that it's fan friendly. So the local organizing committee here is probably one of the best in the country. And that's exactly what they're doing. What are the deliverable, tangible assets in the communities such that they can enjoy the experience as well? And we want these folks coming here from all over the world, we want them to see all 84 square miles of our city.
And then when you look at the downtown area, the Downtown Seattle Association has reported 88 new businesses, 3,000 residential units added in 2024, but the vacancy rate's still pretty high. So what is the plan to recruit more businesses into downtown?
Yeah. So
still a problem.
I've said, a few speeches I've said, my enemy is plywood on windows where there's closed businesses. So one of the things I'm telling folks is, first of all, for downtown to be inviting, that's why the public safety is so important, right? We have to make it inviting for everyone. So that's why we're so bullish on downtown. But we have a Seattle Restored program, for example, where we will bring in businesses and work with landlords, and they'll pay a fraction of the rent just to have some activity ongoing. We'll continue to do that. I literally go pitch business space to businesses that are considering Seattle. I've gone on the road to do that same as well. So we are working with the Greater Seattle partners, working with the Chamber of Commerce, working with the Small Business Administration. So we're recruiting, cleaning up the city, and they care about public safety, and that's why it's so important. So we'll continue to recruit as many folks here. And again, when we looked at the permit process and the zoning plans to make sure that the new downtown is not going to be the same. The fact of the matter is that with e-commerce being what it is, people's shopping patterns have to be different. So I asked my team, and I have a great innovation performance team. I said, someone decided to build a mountain in Dubai to ski, and someone that probably got laughed out the room on the first shot. I said, what is our mountain here in downtown Seattle? What can we attract people? The experiential piece of being downtown. Why will people? So now you're looking at daycare, you're looking at dog parks, you're looking at schools. So the whole component of what makes the downtown great. Walkability, and that's why I said in the Pike Place, I got some criticism for it, but I said I want it to be the best pedestrian experience in the city, right down in Pike Place Market. And quite honestly, every mayor, it seems like mayors punt on these issues. You look at my climate change legislation, you look at my tree ordinance. There had been an interim tree ordinance in the city for 15 years. And I said, we're going to take that on in my building emissions performance legislation, looking at commercial buildings, realizing 40% of our emissions come from commercial buildings. We took that on. So my executive order, again, looking at our climate impacts in addition to the business issues, right? So what we do, we don't wait, we act. And so the viability of our downtown, the younger folks, they want to know that it's going to be environmentally clean as well as safe.
You brought up zoning, and there has been some pushback from some neighborhoods, Revena Madison Park, to some of the zoning recommendations. What do you say to those who are concerned that they're going to be displaced?
Yeah. First of all, I get it. I mean, I get it. What people are saying is the quality of their neighborhood, they don't want it to go down. They don't want to see parks cluttering up, a parking issue. They want to make sure there's infrastructure, there's open space, there's green space, there's parks. They want a quality of life. And so what we did, our approach is to make sure we look at where growth makes sense. And we identified areas where we think we can be more aggressive, particularly around transit-oriented development. We looked at where the stations could be for light rail. And by the way, we have one of the biggest light rail systems in the country going on right now. So that's why I expedited the review process to make sure we can get good housing around these areas. So your message on the quality of your neighborhood resonates with our administration, and we're planning accordingly.
But your 20-year plan will include making changes in a lot of these areas where you know you're getting pushback, but you think in the long run it's in the best interest of the city.
It has to be, because we can't stop growth. I mean, I suppose we can, but we embrace growth. And when we're preparing for over 300,000 units, we have to think about what that looks like. And again, there's an environmental piece to that and density, being a livable, walkable city, helps us address climate change. And so we think we're reaching the right balance.
I have a couple more questions, and that's it.
Sure.
You brought up sports. You brought up the women's hockey team. You talked about basketball. We have a women's professional team. When are we going to get the Sonics?
Yes.
Already?
Well, you probably heard about a bad joke I had when I tossed them for basketball. We're not going to do that today.
All joking aside.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Well, we've seen, first of all, I'm very optimistic, and I don't want to get in front of my skis on this one, but it's very clear that both our market and Las Vegas are I think the best markets. And so we are ready. And when we have these classic games here, and we have Portland coming up or the Clippers coming up, we sell out like that, right? So we're signaling to the NBA, we are ready here. Climate Pledge Arena is awesome. And it's a world-class arena, so we're ready. It seats 18,000 folks, and it's a great fan experience. So,
is there a group? Are there buyers in position? I mean,
yeah.
Are we ready for an NBA team?
Yes,
is there
yes.
any backdoor channel talk happening here?
Yes, and yes. I don't want to say almost weekly meetings on what we're trying to do here. I am committed to doing everything possible to getting a team back. A former NBA player, Kevin Johnson, who was a mayor as well, Kevin and I are friends, and I talked to Kevin many times. What did you do to make sure the Sacramento Kings were in place? And so I will go to different mayors and ask them about the tricks on making sure we either get a team or we'll keep a team. So yes, we are working feverishly on this. It's not something I openly talk about because, again, there are other markets outside of Las Vegas and Seattle that want it as well. So, but we're in a good position right now.
I can't imagine there's a city that wants a team more than Seattle.
I would agree with that. We show it time and time again. We're so proud of our Storm, and even when we had the NC2A playoffs here, there were teams coming from, Colorado and other parts of the Arizona and other parts of the country to come here to have part of our fan experience. We love basketball here, and the league knows that.
And we want our team back.
We want our team back.
As someone born and bred here.
Yes, and we have the right to name Sonics, by the way.
Finally, Mayor, Politics is a tough business. So why do you do it?
Well, I have a great support system through my wife and my family. This city's been very, very good to me. You know, I was born on Capitol Hill at a little hospital, Cabrini Hospital. Went to Seattle Public Schools, University of Washington. I am a result of a lot of people that worked hard to put me in this position. And it saddened me and almost angered me that I see where it sort of got off the rails. I am fully committed to this great city. I love this city. It's been very good to my family and my parents. I have to do this. This is the most consequential race in my career. And I've won 4 elections because our nation is in crisis. And I honestly believe that the answers for our country are found right here in Seattle. We're smart, we're committed, we love our people, and we love our climate, our fight against climate change. We are well read, we believe in education. I believe the answers are here. So that's why this race is so important to me, and that's why I'm re-upping to do it another term.
And if people are casting their votes, why do you think that you deserve their vote more than any other candidate?
Well, I would say I have a track record of being in politics for 16 years, and no one criticizes really the votes that I take or the legislation that I passed. I fight hard for those that need a voice. I didn't have a voice when I was young, to a large extent. You know, I was a biracial kid that grew up in a city where the civil rights movement and the talks were radioactive. People were fighting for a chance, and somehow this little kid became the mayor of this city. So I'd say that I don't think anyone has the tenacity and the commitment, the wherewithal, and quite frankly, the hard work ethic that I put forward to get this city back. And that's why I would ask for their vote. And I come from a spirit of humility. I mean, my mom and dad taught me that I'm not entitled to the job. This is a hard job, but I'm up for it. And I ask that the voters believe in me, because I certainly believe in them.
Appreciate your time.
Thank
I
you.
really
Thank
do.
you, Judge.
Thank you so
All right.
much.